Number 2. How to write. Okay, so we're all set, right? You've chosen a topic to write about, you're excited about it, comfortable with it, and excited to read it and see how it turns out when you're done. Well, it's great to have your ideas take shape in your mind, but now you're sitting in front of that blank page. Yikes! No, not you, sorry. My dog just leapt off the couch towards me because he heard the bag of chips opening. Distractions can be your number one enemy while writing. Make sure that you're in a comfortable space, mentally and physically, when getting ready to write. If you have the luxury of living by yourself, most people find home serene enough. If you live with others, perhaps setting up a writing office at home is your next viable option. Whether it's a library, a coffee shop, a park, or your bedroom, make sure you're comfortable. Posture is a big deal here, ladies and gentlemen. Have you ever tried to write an email, let alone a couple of pages of text, slumped over on a couch? It's not that comfortable, and your writing speed is not the greatest. Seat yourself in a nice, comfortable chair with plenty of cushion and back support. Back support. I will say it 3 times. Back support, back support, back support. Back support is key to being comfortable while typing. Bad posture is the number one reason you'll not want to commit to your 30, 45, 60-minute writing block you've set aside for yourself. Once you've determined how and where you're going to be writing, you can get to typing. Having some sort of outline will help you keep those fingers flowing. The mind already thinks faster than we can type, so having notes to reference will save you a lot of downtime off the keyboard. There are different types of outlines, which we'll get into more detail later on, but some sort of outline is generally helpful while writing your fiction story. It is an absolute must when writing nonfiction, but that's not a topic we'll be discussing in this book. Even if you're a pantser, more on that later, a bare skeleton of an outline, a beginning, middle, and end, is oftentimes necessary to not get stuck in the mind. Get to know the characters of your story. Who are they? Where are they from? What do they want in life? Conflict makes for excellent story. Drama sells. It really does. If you know what motivates your characters and create a backstory for them before you pen them to life, it will help keep your story from going stale or hitting a dead end. No one really cares about Homer collecting magnets in his basement unless you explain why that is important to him. With no explanation, Homer's just a creepy guy with not much going on in his life. Maybe as a kid, Homer's father abandoned him. His older brother was the only positive male figure in his life. But his older brother went off to war. His brother would send him a magnet in the mail every time he visited a new place. After Homer's brother was killed in the line of duty, Homer continued to collect magnets because it brought comfort and reminded him of his brother. Just that explanation alone evokes sympathy for Homer. Now he seems like an emotionally scarred, lovable guy instead of a creep. This isn't something the reader has to know on the first page, chapter, or even the first half of the book. However, it is essential that you know this about Homer before you write a single sentence about him. What you know about your characters before you write them determine whether they're three-dimensional characters or not. You want three-dimensional characters in your story across the spectrum because people will be able to relate to your characters and will relate to them differently. I love a good old romping story about pirates searching for lost treasure. But if I don't care why they want it and the journey it takes for them to get there, I'll not care one iota about your book. When do you want to show the reader something? When do you want to tell them something? Most first-time writers end up telling more than showing. There's no perfect mix or percentage to make the magic formula. Every writer is different, and the amount of variance between the two will differ with every writer. However, in later revisions, you can cut as much as 10 to 20% of your book out of the final draft. For example, in my last novel, I cut out about 10% of my first draft because it was either too repetitive or simply not that interesting or necessary for the story. My book was only 50,000 words, slightly above the required length for a story to be considered a novel by mainstream publishers. Cutting out 5,000 words meant that 2 whole chapters went extinct. That's a lot of volume gone for a book of that size. It's an even bigger problem if those 2 whole chapters were mainly dialogue. Know when it's good for a character to explain something in the first person, or if you as the writer can describe it to the reader in the third-person narrative. Another rule of thumb for showing over telling is your character's knowledge. In my novel, Ashelon, my fantasy world spins clockwise. The sun rises in the west and sets in the east. All the characters that live in this world would know this. But I may need the readers to know this for a particular reason. Rather than the main character make a big deal about an everyday commonplace scientific function to his friend, who would likely also know this, I explain this phenomenon to the reader in my narrative, which is showing. It would be uncommon and stand out to the reader, but not the characters living in that world.